Hello and welcome to the second video. This one's going to focus on common organisms that you might find in your 1 meter squared site. I would encourage you to get down low. In your site or near your site, you'll see things like these Douglas fir cones. There'll be little strips of moss, some cedar leaves, perhaps some alder cones like those ones. There's another cedar leaf. And unless you have a really cultivated lawn, you should be able to see daisy flowers, different types of grass. Of course, dandelions are very common right now. They're distinctive leaves, even if they don't have their yellow flowers or seed heads. You'll notice that there's different types of flowers with different colors, shapes, patterns, numbers of florets. And of course, moss is quite common. You notice it's quite spongy and moist, able to hold 20 times its weight in water. Lichen are fascinating. And these are a combination of a photosynthetic algae or bacteria hanging out with one or two species of fungi, living in a mutualistic relationship. Let's have a look at a plot. Here's my backyard. You're going to have Douglas fir cones, like this. You'll also see cedar leaves, which are scaly, dandelion leaves, of course, moss will be present, like this here. Some daisy flowers. There's a piece of bark, perhaps from Douglas fir, and of course grass. What many people don't realize is grass is actually a flowering plant. It is an angiosperm. I would also encourage you to look at the texture of a lot of these plants. When you look closely, there are a lot of hairs or other structures present that aren't immediately obvious. Here's some spore capsules of moss. This is also a great time of the year to see the new growth of leaves. New leaves are thinner and their green chlorophyll pigments are still developing. Now when sunlight hits a leaf, the green is one color that leaves do not absorb, so it gets reflected or refracted to your eyes. Having a look here at some salal on the right and some dull Oregon grape on the left, you can see the difference in color. It's the same species, maybe even same plant, but the newer leaves are much, much greener, much thinner as well. On the sword fern, you can see actually a spectrum of green if you look closely enough, because they're freshly formed fronds. So there's a difference in the color on the leaflets. On the underside, you can also see the reproductive structures, which are the spores, or rather clusters of many, many spores. It's also great to go out when it's raining or just after it's rained, or maybe early in the morning when the dew is present. The colors change. The species that you see also change. Certain organisms like snails or slugs are much more likely to come out when your site is wetter. Let's have a closer look at a slug. I've slowed down the background audio, and I'm going to do something that you're not supposed to do in video and have dead air. And I'm going to invite you to focus on this slug as it moves by for 1 minute. 1 minute, focus all your attention on this slug. I'm sure you notice the patterns, textures, and light. And you also may have wondered what this weird thing is. Well, that's a slug breathing pore, part of the gastropod respiratory system, and it's how they get oxygen. Rather different looking than our lungs, but it fulfills the same purpose. Alright, let's focus on some other common species you might find. Dandelion is pretty ubiquitous right now, and I invite you to really attune your focus to the structures. You see, structure is related to function, and if you look at a dandelion seed, they're really little parachutes, very effective at carrying out their job of dispersing the seeds to a new area. Here they are in my hand, and you'll watch as I blow, they are carrying forth to become new dandelions. You might have trees nearby, and if you look closely at the bark, you'll notice they're all rather unique. This is arbutus. Compare that to the thickly furrowed bark of Douglas fir, which is covered in a lot of lichen. And here you have the western red cedar, the tree of life to many indigenous peoples. Its strippy bark can be used to weave baskets. In fact, all parts of cedars were used by local indigenous peoples. When there are thick furrows or other alcoves in bark, this becomes little mini ecosystems for organisms. Here you see many spiders, which are starting to come out because the insects are starting to come out. And of course, that provides plenty of food for these 8-legged arachnids. Here we have wood bugs, as we call them in BC, and they are actually crustaceans, and these isopods play an important role in nutrient cycling. They are harmless to humans and not a pest. Here we have a dead ground beetle, of which there are many species. They are usually nocturnal, and they possess strong mandibles or mouth parts for capturing prey such as slugs, worms, ants, and caterpillars. Even in death, they will contribute to the ecosystem by returning nutrients and minerals to the soil to be used by other organisms such as plants. This earwig, like most humans, is an omnivore. You might even find them inside your house, and despite their appearance, they are not dangerous in any way to humans. If you have flowers in or near your site, you are bound to see pollinators. The job of pollinators is to help flowers become fruit. The longer you linger at your site and the slower your gaze, the more likely wonders of the natural world will start revealing themselves to you. Here are some tiny white flies that appeared one day and were gone the next. In many forests, caterpillars will eat more leaves than any other herbivore. In fact, they will increase their weight by more than 1,000 times, preparing themselves for their metamorphosis. Look closely at this moth. You can see her coiled up proboscis. This tubular mouthpart is used to suck up nectar. Here, one moment, gone the next.